that through how he...
Maybe he's having a few problems with their internet, I think. You froze a little bit there, but no problem. I've pressed record. Thanks, Libs. Yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome, Gary. Just a quick introduction. I think Gary's the only, actually, of all our webinar guests, Gary's the one that I haven't known for very long, probably for about 3 or 4 weeks, and that's just a couple of phone calls. So the story behind this is that we have a mutual friend in Steve Torpey, who I did my license with a few years ago, a fellow scouter like yourself, Gary. Steve went all big time on me and said, "Oh, I work for Man City now, you know, we're not allowed to do all that stuff." But in fairness to him, I don't know if he's on actually, he might be on. He said, "But I'll help you, and I've got a guy, Gary, who would love to help out." So Gary's kindly come on tonight, and that's thanks to Steve, and it's great to meet you, Gary. Gary, are you right? Before you're going to present tonight, but you're okay just to give us a little bit of a whistle-stop tour as to your journey and how you ended up in the States?
Yes, the more clubs I end up working at, the story gets longer. So just as quick as I can. I worked in finance for many years, desperate to get into football and be a coach. I was on a beach in Jamaica, drinking vodka cranberries, and this guy said to me, "What's your dream?" I said, "I want to be a football coach." And he said, "Well, do it." So I did. I started at Vauxhall Motors for no money, just working as a kind of volunteer. Applied to Liverpool many times to try and get just in the academy or on the camps. Got an opportunity to go to Liverpool, working with U7, U8s, and doing all the camps across Europe and even into Asia. And then I did the up to the U8 license while I was doing that. So just trying to get some 11v11 working while I was working with the young ones. And I went into Phil Roscoe and just said, "Look, Phil, I've got my U8 license now. I'm working with the U7, U8s. What advice can you give me to get an academy team?" And he said, "Leave." So I said, "Right, okay." So I got an opportunity at Derby County with Kevin Thelwell. Kevin's now head of sport at New York Red Bulls over here. Offered an opportunity to go to Everton. Worked at Everton for a few years. One of the first groups I had there, Ross Barkley in it. So as a young coach working, you don't realise who they are at the time, but when I think of how poor I was as a coach in them days and working with that caliber of player, I'm kind of embarrassed about maybe what I said to him at the time. And then I got a call one day to see if I'd go back to Liverpool, and I just said, "Yeah, I'll crawl on my hands and knees down the M57 if you give me another shot at this." So I went in, and then me and Steve Torps, we ended up full time on the same day, both of us head of phase. After a few years, there was a lot of changes at Liverpool with just change with Rodolfo Brell moving on, Pep Segura, Rafa leaving, and somebody offered me an opportunity to come to America as national director of coaching for a big company over here, and I covered Boston to Dallas, which is a huge area, and quickly realised it was more about making money than actually developing players. So I was disappointed I'd made that decision. And then, just as luck would have it, I presented in a house one night, and one of the owners of Philadelphia Union, his brother was in the room, and just said, "I've just heard this guy speak. You need to get him." So yeah, I ended up in Philadelphia Union. Now I'm in Seattle. I was only in Seattle a few months. Academy director Mark Nichols brought me over, gave me U17s at Seattle Sounders, and within 4 months he moved on. So I ended up getting his job then as academy director. So that's where I'm up to.
Fantastic. We've got a question already, Libby. It's quite a personal one, actually, isn't it?
Shall I fire away?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, there's one from Darren here. What age did you decide to follow your dream to be a coach?
I played semi-pro like most people, and I realised I wasn't good enough as a player to make it as a pro. Did the old interim coaching badge when I was about 18. Really enjoyed it, and then moved into finance. But always had an eye on wanting to be a coach and just wanting to be around football, but never thought I'd get the opportunity. And then, as I say, at 24 years of age, I'm on the beach in Jamaica, and that was it. Decision made. I gave the company 3 months' notice and off I went, and it was tough. You know, I, for no money, I set up a coaching business, going around the schools of the daytime, doing like sponsored events and just trying to make as much money as I could. And that was it really. And it just, again, just in terms of networking, and just being a decent person, I think you get opportunities with your work ethic. And I've ended up, I never thought of, and then I'd end up as academy director at Seattle Sounders, you know, one of the biggest clubs in America, but here I am.
Brilliant. Great story.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, so if you want to, you're going to present for us tonight, which is good. You want to start us off?
Yeah. If I just set it up, I kind of just through the experience of working in good clubs, you know, Everton, Liverpool, working with really good people. Certainly with Liverpool, we got shown the Spanish way of doing things, and Pep Segura and Rodolfo, they explained the why of coaching, which I never really understood. I never understood why a technical practice was getting done, why a phase of play. I always went from the technical session to the game. They taught us to go to the game backwards. So what does the game look like? Work your way back. And does the technical session actually look like the game? Can you actually see our identity in your session? Whereas I would look, you know, I'd make sure the session looked good before we enter the game. So that's where I got my education down. That was a light bulb moment for me. Going to Philadelphia, I didn't really have anybody above me with that kind of knowledge. So then it was just seeking new knowledge. And then I come to Seattle, and it's a very cerebral city, Seattle. It's, you know, we got Microsoft here, Amazon, Boeing. The parents are highly educated, and so are the kids. As an example, in Philadelphia, they would all say, yes, coach, no problem, coach. And they do everything you said. Everything's coach-led in America. When I came to Seattle, it was why, coach.
Really?
They wanted to understand, yeah, they really wanted to know why we were doing something, and they'd always challenge you. So, I speak to Torps a lot about, you know, getting a punch in the face, and that's what I got when I came here. Just the level of detail that they go into here was fascinating. So yeah, that's I'll pull the presentation.
Sorry, Gary, it's challenged you then. It's challenged you having to.
I was nervous giving a team talk at halftime. I've been coaching for 20 years, and I was looking at the watch, and 35 minutes into the game, I'm thinking,
oh no,
I'm gonna have to do a team talk in 10 minutes, and I'm gonna have to be absolutely on it. Yeah, I had to analyze, and people say, you know, instead of just waffling, and you've got to be really, really on it and descriptive and nail your point. You're not a pundit at halftime. You don't talk about what happened in the first half. That's not your job. Your job is to affect the second half. So yeah, you know, all these things are flying around my head at the time, and understanding this solution-based game cue coaching that we do here. Yeah, so I'll bring the presentation up, and
great.
Off we go. This is part of coaching vocabulary now. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. All good.
Okay, good. That's just a couple of pictures. You can see from the Everton days, you know, a young Ross Barkley up there, and then here is Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's looking the opposite direction on the bench, which was typical of Trent at the time. Connor Cody, who I've kept in touch with, and then just some of the players from over here.
Brilliant.
So this is the States. So this is where we are. This is the green circle. That's where we are. So just to put this into perspective, when you work at Liverpool or Everton, you've got Man City, Wigan, Blackburn, Manchester United, all these clubs around you within, you know, 30 to 45 minutes. This is us. So we're Seattle. The dot above us is Vancouver, which is Canada, and then Portland is the one below us. And that's our local derby. So that's a 3.5 hour drive to play our local derby. They're the only 2 games we go by bus. The rest is flights. So all of our teams, then we have to fly everybody. So in terms of budget, it's tricky. And then this is kind of our area down here. We're looking at Sacramento, San Jose, Silicon Valley, and then we're down into LA, Arizona. and then you're moving across the country. Then right over here is really a hotbed. New York City, New York Red Bulls, Philadelphia Union, DC United. The distance from here to here is pretty much Philadelphia to Manchester. So it's a hell of a distance to travel. And then obviously down into Florida, it's pretty much chaos. And in the middle of the country, you can see there's not a lot going on. A little bit in Utah with Real Salt Lake, and then Colorado Rapids. So that's where we are. Just go through the academy values just to kind of set the scene, and we do live these. Humility is important for us. We try to keep the lid on some of the boys, and in terms of long-term player development, players are arriving in the first teams at different times. So it's important that if you see the guy next year, going up, it's important that he is humble about that. And then if you have to go and then play in your own age group again, do you have the humility and respect for everybody to actually drop into that age group? We're big on community, obviously with the issues going on last year with Black Lives Matter going on, and a lot of issues within Seattle. We've made a conscious effort to be part of the community and live our values. And then obviously we're all ambitious. We want to do well. Before I came here, the academy won the national title and also won the Generation Adidas Cup against Valencia. They beat Valencia in the final to be the first. They played River Plate on the way to the final, West Ham in the semi-final, and then Valencia in the final. Yeah, and the only US-based team that actually won the competition.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, so this is us. The SDP is our Sounders Discovery Program. Going back to just geography, when you think about where we are, we can't really fly U12s around the country. We haven't got the budget for that. So we have a Sounders Discovery Program. We leave the players in the clubs locally. They come to us 2 nights a week. And then when we feel they're ready, we'll sign them at U15. And then we go through then to our U17, U19. USL is pretty much our U23s. We're the second youngest team in America with our USL group, but they play in a men's league, which is great for development. You're playing against a 35-year-old centre back who's got a couple of kids and having to feed his family, and it means the world to these boys to get 3 points. So to put our young players into that environment is highly valuable for us. And then our first team then. Yeah, go on,
can I just pick up on one thing there? So I think I heard it right. Under 15s is the first time the players really belong to the club. Would that be right? The rest of the time,
yes.
Yeah, because that's late compared to how we do it, isn't it, over here?
It's really late. Yeah, and you've got a lot of catching up to do. That's why we have SDP. We do that 2 nights a week, but still. And then going back to community, then how do we upskill the local coaches? So we have our affiliate program. We do many clinics with them. But still, it's not their career for some of these people. So, no, you're spot on. It's really difficult, yeah. Yeah, and then we have a residency program as well. When you think about, our area, in terms of like just Seattle, that's our area. So when you look at the hotbed of the northwest of the UK, they're all fighting for different players. We're not. We've got the pick of Seattle, the whole state, the Washington state.
So you're not worried about losing a 12-year-old to another club because the rival club is 3 hours away. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And then we're governed by the territories as well. This will make you smile. Our territory is Washington State and Hawaii. So that's so I have to go to Hawaii now and again to recruit.
It's a hard life, isn't it?
It's different to Wigan. That's kind of our philosophy really as a club. It's important for us that we keep this simple. Pep Guardiola's philosophy is we want to have the ball more than the opponent. That's it. That's his philosophy. And then his principles of play then coming after that. So it's really important. And I've always believed this. I mean, I had a philosophy that was 4 pages long at one point. And as soon as you go onto the pitch, you go against your own philosophy. So if you're a team that always plays out from the back and then a team high presses, you've got a problem. So straight away then you've kind of gone against your own philosophy. So have your philosophy, this is ours, and then your principles of play then can change depending on the game itself. So we're big on this. The first one you see is create numerical superiority. We're big on this. So what we looked at was, we looked at all the scenarios that go on around the world. So you're looking at, are you faced with one striker? You're faced with one striker and you're playing out from the back. Now you're faced with two strikers. Now you're faced with a full press, a mid block, a low block. These things just keep coming up over and over and over again. So what we thought was, if we train that way, so that and this goes into our solution-based coaching, and the easiest way to describe this, if you're faced with this, do this. So then we break it down. I'll go into this a little bit later. In fact, I'll leave that and I'll mention it later, about how we actually work. Anything, Steve?
No, great.
No, okay.
I'm intrigued.
Keep rolling. Okay. And then the next thing, these are our areas. So if you look at possession, we call that possession to advance rather than playing out from the back, because possession to advance can be anywhere. And we just overload, we just +1. So if there's two strikers, we bring our 6 down. If it's full press, we shallow off our full backs, is what we call them, our outside backs, as we say in America. The latest phrase is minimal width. And there's lots of these phrases that come out now and again, but I quite like minimal width. When you're 7 years of age, people say, you make the field or the pitch deep, wide, and high. You make the field as big as possible. Whereas really, what's the minimum amount of width you need to actually bypass that first line? Because really, playing out from the back is, can you get to the next line? That's all it is. And depending on what you're up against, can you actually engage the next line? So what's the minimum amount of width you need to do that, just in case? So what if we lose it? Are we too open that we've now lost the ball? So that's how we work here. And then we're looking at, can we actually get the ball into the next line for one of our players to face forwards? So we're constantly looking at the evolution of midfield, the rotations in midfield. Can we get a midfielder above the line to face forwards? And then a real key phrase for us, can they then pick up speed? Okay. So player in the pocket, faces forwards, picks up speed. Can we then unbalance the back line? Something we've inserted. I'll show you some data on this later. Can you see that Can you see that, Steve?
Yeah, all good.
The arrow thing, yeah. So what we've done is these areas here, this area here and this area here, if you cross the ball from this area, and we've done loads of data on this, and this is again going back to the cerebral nature of Seattle. Right. If you cross the ball from this area, the likelihood of you scoring a goal from across from this area is 4%. So 96% chance you're not going to score a goal. And then shots from distance are the same, around about 4% chance you're going to score. So what we looked at was we created what we call the box cross. So we actually train to cross the ball from inside the box. We don't allow our players to cross from outside the box. And then I'll show some data. If we can get into the box cross position and get into the goal zone, we have found that our goal scoring ability is shot through the roof.
Gary, I knew I was really excited about tonight. When we spoke a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, you said that one thing to me, 4% of scoring from crosses outside the box. And every match I watch now, I'm thinking, oh, don't cross it there. What's the point of crossing it there? I've looked at the game already, just that snippet of data, I've looked at it differently. So it's fascinating stuff.
It's unbelievable. And then I spoke to Mike Marsh. I'm really close to Mike, and he's the assistant at Swansea now with Steve Cooper.
Okay.
And I mentioned this to him, and he said, look, Gary, I love the phrase you're saying. He said, but at Swansea, we call them ooh chances. I'm like, what do you mean, ooh chances? He said, well, when you cross from here or you shoot from here, all the crowd goes, ooh. Yeah,
you're not nothing for an ooh.
And then just in terms of defending, we have the wide trap. We just try to reduce space, so we try and force. I think the best phrase we use here is establish control. So we get the players in a position where we establish control. We cut off the central penetrating pass, and then we start to force them where we want them. So our players know that the wide trap is really important to us to begin with. If they play a pass across the back line, that then kicks in our defensive midfield press trap. And then anything that goes into the goalkeeper, everything shuffles up. So we'll move the fullback, we'll move the winger, we'll move the centre back, everything shuffles. And then what we do then is we just do this, we have this area here, and we just call it the box. When we're attacking, it's just the what ifs. We just you tend to see. I'll just kind of show you with my fingers. You end up with 2 centre backs and 1 striker. And any time there's a transition, the striker always picks up the ball. And I'm always fascinated by that because there's 2 centre backs standing there watching the game, and this guy just picks up the ball and faces forward. So we've created the box. We have 2 and 2, and we leave the striker in the middle of the box. So anything that bounces out, we just go and get it again, and we're back on the attack.
It's similar to my pet hate is when I'm working with the team and they leave 1 up and we leave 2 back. And like you say, they do sit there and you say, well, one of you go in front, and then they edge closer, and yeah, it's the same thing. It's a pet hate of mine.
It's they just watch the game. So the wide player is just about to cross it in, strangely enough, and they're watching. Oh, we might score a goal here. I remember speaking to Jamie Carragher, and I said to him, "What was your favourite game? What's the best game you've ever played in?" And he said, "You know what?" He said, I've never enjoyed any game." He said, "Because I was just concentrating so much." He said, I was mentally fatigued when I came off the pitch because I was constantly organising. What if we lose it? What if this happens? Why is he standing there? Well, he needs to be 2 yards up. He's playing somebody on side. And you see him, he's bent over. When you actually picture Jamie, he was bent over and he's just barking orders out all the time. So constantly organising. And he's made a career out of it. He'll tell you himself, he wasn't the best technician. But in terms of organisation, he was top. So just a couple of the words that we use, and vocabulary is really important. At Liverpool, Pep brought this in. The vocabulary should stay the same all the way through the club. Like, what does this mean? What does a press mean? What does a set mean? Do the boys understand this? Do they understand what breaking the line is? And then when you get the next team in August, you're not hitting it. You're not having to wait to get your words over to them. You're using the club vocabulary, so all our players know what this is. So what we've done is we put together 20 principles. These are our game principles, and then we've got 65 game cues, and this is how we coach. So if we look at just something here, so in terms of finishing, one of our principles of players: can we upgrade the shot? So we're not going to cross from outside the box. We're going to cross from inside the box, and then we look at: can you upgrade yourself? So can you actually finish one touch? Can you upgrade yourself by taking a touch and finishing and unbalancing the defender? Or can you actually unbalance by creating an opportunity for somebody else? And this is how we work. In terms of transition to attack, can we gain the time edge? So while they're open and expansive, when we've won it, can we play a ball into the furthest point, and then can we go and support that? So can we gain the time edge before they kind of restructure again? They're just a couple of examples.
Right, yeah. It's fantastic.
And then during the lockdown, we took every single one of these game cues and we put them into this, and you see the little codes that are next to them. All our coaches now, if they type this code into the Finder, it brings up this. So the idea behind this was if a coach leaves here, somebody else comes in, and we give them this.
Right.
A lot of this is our core identity stuff. This is what makes a Seattle Sounder. So can they pick this up then? So as an example, so when you click on one of these things, it brings this up. It'll bring the detail behind the session, and then it'll give you a little video clip of that actual session. And this is just really simple. And there's a ton of coaching points in here for all the coaches out there. You'll be like, wow, there's a ton of coaching points here. We know that. And we constantly work on this. So the idea behind this is this player's got the ball here. He fires a ball into here. This player's got to block it. And then as in football, he blocks and then he has to go again. So I'll just show you a quick clip of this. And then, so he blocks. And then straight away then we're trying to force the wide trap. So the idea is if this player cuts inside and scores here, the player in pink gets 2 points. If he scores in this goal, he gets a point. So then in terms of coaching, we, instead of making a run this way, which allows that line, or making a run this way, which allows him to come in, we use the right shoulder as a reference point. So we say to them, run straight at the right shoulder. That's your reference point. And then can you really start to reduce space? And you'll see a lot of things here in terms of where they go. So he's offered him the line, but he's flat-footed. You'll see some go back on the heels. So now it's too straight. Back on his heels, offered him the line. I think the important phrase sometimes with pressing is that, can you actually win the ball? You know, Barcelona always say to the players, the nearest player doesn't press, the nearest player gets the ball back. And it's just that change of terminology sometimes means, no, it's a responsibility.
Do you think we've
pressing?
Do you think we've fallen into that trap as coaches, as almost saying that a press is enough, and not challenging the players enough to win the ball?
I think that's fantastic when you just say, win the ball.
Yeah.
That's your job, win the ball. And it's, and again, just speaking about Pep and Linders and the way they've structured it with Jurgen at Liverpool, they call that the counter press, the best playmaker. So instead of playing out from the back and playing through lines and into these pockets, if they can win the ball with 2 passes to goal, that's the best playmaker they've got. So just to go back, and this is something that kind of I've been neglectful in over the years, is let's take one of our principles of creation and use of space. So can a player receive below a defender, to the side of a defender, or above a defender, right? That's the simplicity of it. That's all. There's nothing else. There's no other place you can receive a ball. So does he know how to do that? So we teach that player how to receive when a player's next to them, when he's to the side, or if you're above him, how do you actually create that space to get above the defender? So we teach the simple there. Then we bring it into simple to more complex. So relationships then. So are they on different lines? Can a player see the other player's feet in a way? What's the relationship? If I come in shallow, does he go on a different line? Can I actually play the ball? And then in terms of complex, we're looking at the line of the unit. How does that affect that line of the unit in terms of creation and use of space? And this is just our week. So we'll do a maintenance. We're changing our physical periodization at the moment with Adam Owen, who's come in, who's changed. There's just a start point for us. We used to go large-sided sessions on the first day of the week. Now we go shorter. We had a lot of muscle injuries to begin with, but we've kind of broke through that situation now, so we're in a good spot. And then the two days, Tuesday, Wednesday, then are our learn and game cues. And we have our core identity, our core sessions, but then we also allow for creativity within the coaches. So if we want creativity with players, we don't want to stifle our coaches either. So that's the block learning. It's the same thing both nights. And then on the Thursday, then it's just prep, it's game prep, plus a little 10 minutes of what's coming next week. Just in terms of learning, we do a refresher, like a little maintenance on what we learned last week, just as you do in school. And then on the Thursday, then it's a little intro to next week. This is what's coming. And then we tend to, we give everybody Friday off usually, or if we're playing away, if it's a flight, so we'll fly on a Friday. We normally have a flight around 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, but we've made it important that we give Friday back to the families and the kids.
Gary, just while we're doing, sorry, just something that's keeps occurring. I can't remember the word you used to describe Seattle. It wasn't a word I was familiar with, but this way of doing things, do you think it is almost unique to Seattle, or because of the type of place it is, or could it work other places in the States?
This could work anywhere. It's just that, and people always say this, this is not the way, it's just our way. You hear that a lot lately, and this is just our way. And what you do see is you see a clear identity, you see a real game understanding from the coach and the player. And when it comes to like half time, now that I've been around it for a year and a half, I'm confident now to speak this way. And we're just looking at, what we tend to find. Let me just explain the MLS to you, and the best way I can describe the MLS. Most teams in the MLS will attack and defend in the same shape.
Okay.
Whereas there's probably only, I'd say there's clear identities. There's two in America. One is New York Red Bulls, which is the Red Bull high press Liverpool type thing, and the other one I'd say is San Jose, which is man to man. They just go man to man. It's extremely difficult to play against, and they're the clear identities. So in terms of our academy, you'll see this clearly because we work on it every single day. And sometimes you if you've been audited in the past and you're kind of scrambling to put stuff together. But we genuinely do this every single day.
That's brilliant.
That's kind of just of our weekly plan. The IFD is just isolated functional defending. And the situation, what we make sure we do here is we start off with the problem all the time, but it's a 2v1 situation. If it's into we call it the phase of plays in England. But it's just a situation. What kind of situation is happening? We're up against a full press. We're up against, 2 players in the wide area. We're trying to create the box cross. How do we unbalance the back line? So it's just something simple as right back's wide. The 7 comes in between the centre back and the full back. As the ball goes into the full back, can we get the 7 to run and unbalance the line? So we're working on different lines. If that player then gets tracked, can we bring a third one over to create our +1 again? So what we do then is bring a 10 over. We've unbalanced the line. We bring the 10 over. We got a +1 again.
So the problems you create for the players, is that like a scheme of work, a scheme of problems, or is it something you see from opposition teams? And how do you decide what problems you're going to expose the players to in training?
It's them 65 game cues. What we've decided is that these are the things that keep coming up in the game of football. So we just replicate them, and that's when I go back to solution-based coaching. If you're faced with this, we've got a solution. We know how to get out of it. I mean, it doesn't. We don't win every single game, or you're going to have technical issues. You're going to have a bad pass, but there's a clear idea of how we work. And then we just looked into the pedagogy process, which is important. We looked heavily into the French model, and these things we could do better with this. Let's just go back. So making sure you've got different hats on during the session. So is there a moment where you don't have to talk? Is there a moment where you can actually just step back and think, have they got this? 2 minutes where the boys have been on Zoom calls all day in school. They're coming into a 4v4 rondo or something, and there's a specific target for them. Do you give them time to figure it out? Do you take that as a proactive spectator? Are you just taking it back and think, okay, are they finding the feet? Are they finding the spaces themselves? And then the next piece then is our tactical decision model. So we call ourselves the surgeon. Then we're operating. It's game on now for the coach. Specific cues, repeated tactical situations. So it becomes normal. Where some of the players, again, the word they use was cerebral, by the way.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I love these, by the way. I love these. Proactive spectator, surgeon. People are going to. I'll be going to be using these.
Okay, that's good. No, we all steal things from each other, don't we? Especially the scouts are here. And then just as an example, we've and again, just if you pick up our book, if you come into our environment, say, I don't really understand this. Let's just take this. So in terms of the self-adaptive model, you're going to use a neutral. That doesn't mean that you've got 11 players. That doesn't mean you're doing a 5v5 and you have to have a neutral. A neutral means what's the specific role for that neutral? So as an example, we want to pick up. We want to get a midfielder to pick space forward and pick up speed in midfield. That's the neutral's role now. Can you get yourself free? Can you pick up speed? How does that affect everybody around you? That's how we do it, that type of thing. So we make sure it's a specific role for our neutral player. And you'll see other stuff that's in there that I don't need to go into too much detail on. Just physical. This is interesting. So before I throw up, we decided we were going to give a job description to all our positions. Okay. So we took all the positions of the team, and we give them a job description. So what we did was we looked at all the central defenders around the world, and I'll show you. We took all the data. Okay, so we looked at what's common for a central defender. So and these were kind of the norms. So defensive duels won 68%. Defensive aerial duels win 67%. And this is what forms our IDPs. So that we get data for every game, and the boys just plug this in. So example, if I send a 6'2" striker, 6'2" centre back to Brian Schmetter, our first team coach, and he says he can't win an aerial duel, he can't head it, he can't jump. Are you aware of this? Well, this will tell us that his aerial duels won at 40%. So now there's IDP work to be done now on him, and then we've just put in our cues and our principles for that, just so they know exactly what their role is within the team.
Mm.
It was funny. I showed Steve Torpey this, and he said, yeah, it's great. He said, I love it. He said, yeah, I understand it's a job description. It gives a guide to the player. He said, well, think of my situation. He said, if I give one of our central midfielders this, and all this data is Kevin De Bruyne, even if he hits them all, he's still not getting in the team because Kevin De Bruyne is hitting them all, and he's got experience, and we trust him. But then when I think back to Trent's probably smashed us. If we had this then, Trent's probably smashed all these, and that's why now he's a key figure. And obviously we just keep changing it in terms of just, and it's interesting, when you come out of a game and the boys input this, it's a talking point as well. Oh wow, I was down. Yeah, my pass completion was 65%. Yeah, it's interesting. Anything on that, Steve? Any thoughts?
Just thoughts. Yeah, I mean, my head's, my brain's fried. It's brilliant. But I guess one thing is, do the players really buy into this? It sounds like they really buy into this kind of data. Data is the way of the world now, isn't it? I guess these young people.
Yeah, but if it's specific to their role, they're into it, and it's easier just to punch this in after every game. We get all the it was Ortec last year. I think it's Opta this year. We get all that data anyway for all our games. They just plug it in. It's easy.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and then obviously the IDPs. What we're looking at with I've never seen IDP done well anywhere I've been. It's always been difficult. So I'm just looking at 10 high potential players now and doing IDP properly. Going into we've done the VAR test with them. What are they a visual learner? Are they auditory learner? Are they doing? I want to know exactly what these 10 players' learning styles are, what their HPV is, where are they in the growth and maturation. I want to know exactly what they're all about, and I feel I can do that with 10 high potential players. And film the sessions, code the sessions, the coaching sessions, code the games for these 10 high potentials. And if other players are saying, why is he getting that and I'm not? Well, get yourself good enough to get in there.
Exactly. Yeah. Pull your finger out. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're in there, stay in there.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. So that's the plan.
That's great. That's brilliant.
And then just in terms of forward thinking, I go back to we looked at. I've only got Liverpool's on here, but we did both teams from last season. We did Liverpool and Manchester City, and we looked at. We arced the box. We just arced the penalty area, just to make it easier for the players. And then we did some data on it then. So we looked at crossing from these areas versus crossing from these areas. And then this is arc one. So if we can do a box cross and get it into arc one, if you're on your strongest foot in arc one with just the goalkeeper to beat, the likelihood is you're going to score. If you're in arc two, which is here, you've got 50% of the goal to see. You're still on your strongest foot. You're probably going to score. And then it just brings in complexity then. Is there a defender in the way? Do I need to take a touch? And then we just looked at all the data. So Liverpool's goals were there, 28% from arc one, 35% arc two. And would you believe? Wow. and then just looking at, so one touch, 48% of Liverpool's goals that year were 48% with one touch. So, and then obviously the two touch, and it just comes into, and I go back to upgrading the shot. That's one of our terms. Can you upgrade the shot? So is there a better position to actually upgrade the shot? And then obviously just additional goals where they came from. We've added video to all these. If you look at, so in that area, 73% was one touch, because it's the hot zone really, isn't it? So you're taking a touch in there, the keeper's onto you. And then obviously three touch was 9%. So you can see then, and you can base your sessions around this stuff then.
Well, I was just thinking that, Garrett, this is brilliant for practice design, isn't it? Making sure your practices are real on it. You can, like you said at the start, you're starting with the game, and then you're basing your technical practices on what comes from the game. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. I've done some interviews recently for coaches, and I've said first question I asked them is, if I come to watch your team play on Saturday, what does it look like? And the amount of blank faces I've seen, it's been amazing. They don't really know what their identity is, but they can put a coaching session on. And it's only Pep Segura and a guy called Didier Didier Chamberon, who's over here now with US Soccer. And he said one day, you start with the end in mind. And I thought, wow, I've heard that before. And they're the only two people have ever said to me, start with the end in mind. What should it look like? Work your way back. Yeah, I won't show the videos. And then this is really interesting, is this was successful entries into the penalty area from Liverpool from that year. And the first question I asked was, how is that possible? If you've got Andy Roberts on one side and Trent on the other, how is it possible that the successful crosses were 3%? I was fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And it's because of the counter pressing, the positions they're winning the ball in. They're winning the ball around about here, and the entries into the box are different. They're not from here. It's more from here and here. And obviously with Mane, and apologies for the Liverpool references, but we did this at Man City as well.
We've got a few Liverpool fans on it, so it's okay.
Yeah, but I think if you're a coach anyway, it doesn't really matter. It could be Barcelona or Real Madrid. It doesn't really matter. It was good to see kind of the champions at the time. What were they doing? We looked at Man City as well. And if anybody wants this presentation, Steve, let me know and I can send this to you with Liverpool and Man City on it.
Gary, just send it to me and then I'll charge a fee and we'll go halves. Be absolutely fine.
Okay. And then obviously entrances into the penalty area aerially. Successful. Yeah, we call this the central crossing zone. If you think of, De Bruyne, when the ball's crossed in here, it comes back out again. And then as the defence are coming out, we tend to look at the ball and can you clip one into the back post? There's your central crossing zone, as kind of we phrased it.
The 0% it fascinates me. So you either get to the byline or you don't you? Or you've lost you then, or you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I just took the screen off. Yeah, that was kind of I said 40 minutes. That was 42 minutes.
Brilliant, Gary. That was great.
That's brilliant. There are a few questions, if we're keen.
I think there are.
Yeah, there's one here. It says, are the club and the academy still working? Is it Puget Sound? Is that the place? Is that how I say it?
It is. Yeah, the Puget Sound is. The Puget Sound is pretty much the water right by the city, and we have the San Juan Islands. It's somebody said to me before I came here, Seattle's spectacular. I'm thinking that's a bit strong. And when I came here, I'm like, it is.
All right.
Yeah, it is.
Tony, this is from Tony McCullum, and he said, I did some coach development work in Seattle a few seasons ago, and the coaches and clubs were trying to align with the club anyway. So
yeah, it's true. They are. Yeah, we've got some really good affiliates, and they're quite proud of the fact that they've produced players and moved them into the Sounders environment.
Fantastic. It's from Alex Reynolds. Does having limits on where you can cross to shoot, does that not limit creativity?
I think it enhances creativity. Yeah, it's even harder because it's pretty much your 1v1 situations and deep line areas like that, and then you're crossing balls into the box for defenders who tend to be a bit bigger than everybody else. Yeah, that's why I think that's why the stats are so low. If you put the ball into that either down the side of the box or into the box, and you can actually work on that. So you've got to be extremely creative as a coach and a player to activate them areas. So that's where we look at. I go back to create numerical superiority. Can we get a +1 in that area? Can we get runs beyond the ball? Can we get players on different lines? So the creativity is more so to actually create it.
Sorry, Liv, I can see where Alex is coming from. I guess it's by being prescriptive and saying as a coach, you must do this, you mustn't do that. I guess that's what he's getting at, isn't it? You're making the decisions for them.
Yeah, because of probabilities. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. I mean, if we do end up crossing one in and somebody heads it, it's great. We're not going to say you shouldn't have done that. Or if somebody smashes one from 25 yards into the top corner, which has been known.
Yeah.
Again, we're not going to say, oh, you shouldn't have done that. That's not one of our game keys.
That's a small percentage, isn't it? Like you said.
We want to work on the percentages. We want to, it's funny how there's tons of podcasts going on nowadays, and they tend to start with, so what's your coaching philosophy? And these coaches come on and they talk through playing out from the back. They talk about all this stuff. Nobody ever talks about scoring goals. It's never part of anyone's philosophy, and it's the most important part of the game. So all we've done is we've just made sure that we try and create as many goal scoring opportunities as we can, so that we can win the game. We like winning. It's important. And people who say winning isn't important in development, absolutely it is.
An old coach of mine who's a fantastic coach educator as well, I think he's retired now, he used to tell me all the time as a player and then a coach, games are won and lost in penalty areas. He used to say too much we concentrate too much of in between penalty areas. Games are won and lost in between penalty areas. And he's dead right, isn't he?
Yeah.
Some good questions coming through, aren't there, Libs?
Yeah, there's some good ones. There's one, with the US having different academic system, how does that impact you on your program of training and fixtures?
If I understand the question right, in terms of college, it's there are competitors now. So a few interesting things have happened since I've been here for nearly 7 years now. When I first came here, I said to the players, what's your ambition? This was at Philadelphia Union. What's your ambition? I want to go through the draft. I want to be drafted into an MLS team. And that started to wane now. That started to go the opposite direction. So they've stopped. We used to have kind of a get together with all the college players who were just coming out of college, and all the MLS coaches would go down and watch. They cancel that now, because what tends to happen is in 4 years of college, they play 3 months per year. So over 4 years of college, they get 1 year of football. So they've lost a massive amount of time of development. And then the academy structure came in. Again, if you think of Philadelphia Union, they were established in 2010 as a club, not just an academy, as a club.
Oh.
So they didn't exist in 2009. So the academies are all brand new over here. And the same happened in England. People were saying the academies weren't working, but after 10 years, they realized they were. So that's all that's happening here. The players are having that route. The biggest issue we have here is if we offer them a $65,000 a year contract to play in our team, they can be offered a $250,000 scholarship from Stanford, which is down the road in Silicon Valley. So we're up against that. You've got to decide now. Do you want to be a footballer or not? That's what you got to decide now in America.
There's a good one here from Jack. How do the coaching styles differ from Seattle and MLS to the UK?
They don't, because the world's a smaller place now. There's so much access to everything in terms of YouTube and sessions on Twitter, and access to, I mean, even from us, we get every Premier League game on TV here. We can just select which one we want to watch every weekend. And for me, they start at 4:30 a.m. is the first game on this coast. Then we have a 7 o'clock game, and then a 10 a.m. game. So by midday, the whole Premier League kind of calendar that day is done by midday. So the boys are getting access to absolutely everything. So the coaches are just improving. I had the same attitude. I was coming over here thinking the American coaches are going to be clueless. They're just going to be people who just shout nonsense all the time, and you get a shock. The level of ability here and the level of coaching is high. Yeah, and you look at even the players are changing from these like physical specimens that they were 10 years ago, all early developers and probably all Q1 birthdays. That's changing now. I mean, I'm even putting in here now. We're going to take 5 Q4 birthdays, because we looked at the MLS, and if you look at the academies in England and here, you obviously Q1 is where the majority of the birthdates are. But when you look at the MLS, 24% of the MLS players are Q4. So there's a market for the late developers.
Can you say about that, Gary? Because that's the impression that I've always had of American soccer teams. when they come to Europe, they are physical, they are specimens, and even players that go over to America for 2 or 3 years and come back, they come back physically a lot better. And I always feel there's a real emphasis on that side of things. I'm sure there still is, but you're saying that the tech stuff is catching up and almost overtaking.
Yeah, you can see the work we're doing here, and that's not unique to here. There's lots of good work going on.
Yeah, great. Sean's got a question here. How would Jamie Carragher fare with the IDP? Do you take in the players' psych and social characteristics?
Yeah, he was huge on that type of stuff anyway, in terms of just detail and obviously his detail now on TV. That's kind of, you know, I'm sure he would have really enjoyed it. And he was a leader, whether it was in training or off the field. He was a leader anyway. And yes, we do have to take that into consideration. I also think of reality, and I think of let me just give you a scenario. So 22 players, one coach, different PHV, different growth maturation, different learning style, different position that they're playing in. How do you put a session on to accommodate all that? And if you can tell me you can do that, then you know I'm hiring you today, because the amount of things you have to deal with as a coach and all this stuff that's coming in, you have to be specific about what you want. And that's why I'm targeting now, right? Can I actually affect 10 players? I'm trying to make it realistic for me. Can I actually target 3 players a week and do some real work with them, instead of saying all our players have an IDP? Well, yeah, they probably do, but is it effective? Are you affecting them? Do you understand how they learn? It's a fantastic question, because it's so difficult to do that when you've got so many other things going on, and you've got to prepare for a game, and you've got video analysis coming in. You know, it's really, really difficult.
Gary, is there a point in which there becomes too much data?
It depends what you use it for. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, it can be anything, can't it? And you know, 42% of data is incorrect. I've just made that up because I can. So, yeah, so it's important how you use it, isn't it? And we've just gone down that line. So right, we're working on a box cross. Have we got any evidence of it? So yeah, we've you know gave it this crazy name of the box cross. Can we actually back it up? Is there any evidence? So we looked at evidence, and then we looked at our own evidence, and we thought, wow, this actually works. And then and just in terms of the job description, if the best centre backs in the world are 67% winning aerial duels, and our boys are 40, then we're using it for that. You know, they're not going to get anywhere if they can't win a header and defend.
It's a logical way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very good. There's some good.
Libby's being challenged now. Which questions to ask?
Oh my word!
I'm under pressure here. Aren't I? That's good.
There's a good one here. What are the biggest mistakes that newer coaches make? And what would you do differently, knowing what you know now?
It was all about me to begin with. I had to put the best session on ever. I felt like the results on the Saturday reflected on me as a coach. I mentioned Ross Barkley earlier. I'm thinking, what sessions did I put on? What was the reason for these sessions? I didn't have the why of coaching in them days. There's so many things that I would change now. I wish I'd have wrote more down. I've been so privileged to have worked with, you know, Rodolfo Brielle. I worked with Rodo for 6 years, and he's Pep's assistant. And he used to say every day, you know, my door's open. So I just kept going through it and just literally tapping into information every single day. And I just wish I'd have wrote stuff down. I wish I'd have reflected more on my sessions earlier. I remember working with Kevin Sheedy at Everton, and he used to just write all the measurements down. It was 2 yards too wide, it was 2 yards too short. And it really affected the session. We're looking at how can you actually affect the session? That's again, just a massive education for me here. And I'll give you a good example of this. What our under-17s coach was doing a rondo the other night. It started off with a 2v1 in the bottom of the box. And it was too easy for the two centre-backs were too slow to move the ball out because we were up against one striker. So what he said to the striker was, if you can just tag one of the defenders, your team's going to get possession. You don't have to win the ball, you just have to tag him. You should have seen the speed of the centre back then, because he knew this guy was coming at them and he only had to tag him. So the speed and the movement changed completely. There was another one with a rondo, a simple 4v2 rondo. 2 defenders in the middle, and the ball breaks through them, okay, and it goes to the other side of the box, and the two in the middle turned around. So one of our coaches said to me, when in a game would the ball break your line and you just turn and watch? When would that ever happen in a game? So what he said was, if the ball goes through the two in the middle, if they can connect a pass 1 touch from the other side of the rondo, it's an extra point. So you should have seen the impact it had on these 2 players. So as it went through, they turned and tried to stop the 1-touch pass. It affected them immediately. So what he's trying to, so you basically, all you're trying to do is just kind of improve behaviours.
Yeah.
So what does that rondo look like? Is it serving a purpose? Does it look like the game? Ball's gone. It doesn't look like the game anymore. Just that little tweak made it look like the game again.
I think we've from coach educating the level 2 and the UEFA B, we've gone big on that recently, Gary, over here with the realism of practices. I think we've really, you know, the transition in practices, and like you say, recreating actual game type scenarios. I think we've got better at that over the last few years, I think. I'm going to take over a little bit, Libs. We've got some more comments than questions. Gary is actually written what I was thinking earlier. He said, where's he gone? Gary Piggott said, brilliant information, superb detail, too much going on in my head for any questions. And I was like that earlier, Gary, when you said, on that, Steve, and I'm still trying to process what you said before. So, and then we've got anonymous, but they've said, I think this is when we were talking about the creativity and is it stifling creativity? This is brilliant. They seem more like tactical guardrails as opposed to making decisions for the players. So I like that. So that's a good statement. Any other questions there, Lib? Because I've run out a bit of time, and Greg's got to go on.
I've just seen one. If you don't mind me answering it,
yeah, please. Yeah.
Gary Piggott. Yeah, it just says, would you say that the players are more cerebral than British players? The advantage you have in the UK is that it's the life. Football's the life. The parents all understand it. They've grown up with it. They have a ball in the house. They don't hear. This is different. And we say to them, these 4 sessions you're doing a week with us are not going to make you a player. It's the stuff that you are going to do outside of this is going to be more and more important. So I'd say an advantage in terms of game understanding and being in that culture, whereas soccer is not the culture over here. It's different.
Yeah, there's a few. This might have to be a quick fire one from Sean.
Yeah, I've got 2 minutes. Yeah.
2 minutes. Sean goes, I see lots of coaches coaching in possession as well as out of possession in the same session. Would you integrate them or separate them?
We want to model the behaviour to get our outcome. So all we'll do is, if I'm guessing this right, if we can affect the opposition, that can bring our topic out. So as an example, if say you want to work on defending in wide areas, okay? Well, let's just flip it. Let's go attacking in wide areas. Yeah, so attacking in wide areas, we want to work on that. We ask the opposition to defend centrally. Okay, and because that will make sure the ball goes wide. What I see a lot is that they just set the opposition up and the ball goes wide and their back line just drops immediately because they know you're working on attacking. And no, we want you to defend centrally to ensure the ball goes wide. And again, just putting something on it. If a player can receive a ball in the central area and face forwards, it's a point against your team. So straight away, they're like, no, we don't want that to happen. We're going to make sure that this player does not get on the ball in midfield, which then forces us to play the ball wide. Now we're working on attacking wide areas. So that's how we do it. We affect the opposition to bring our outcome out.
I think we use a similar expression. We manage the opposition and coach the team. You manage one team, coach the other. Similar, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Libs, we've got to let Gary go. I know you don't want to. I don't.
Yeah, I'm wary of time.
Gary, it's been absolutely fascinating. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know that people have enjoyed it. I can tell by the questions and the comments coming through. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, no, honestly, I've loved it. It would have been great to have seen everybody in a better environment, but this is the way of the world.
Yeah.
Steve, do us a favour, please give my email address out. I'll send you, if anybody's got any follow-up questions or want to delve deeper, and just want to keep in touch, basically, then yeah, please reach out.
And before the call, Gary actually invited us over, a few of us over. So I'll let you know when the trip is to Seattle. All right, mate. Thanks ever so much. You too off.
No problem. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Libby.
Cheers, Gary.
Thanks. Bye.
And thanks for coming, guys. See you on the next webinar.
Monday. Got the weekend off.
Is it? Oh.
I'm trying to get out.
It's all right. We're all going now.